Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to learn how to make these well-fitted lemon peel stitch crochet shorts. These are inspired by our previous lemon peel stitch crochet skirt that we just did in one of our previous videos. And yeah, the stitch is the same. The difference is now we are making a pair of shorts. This can be matched with our previous halter top, the lemon peel stitch halter top. I'll be leaving all the links to the related projects in the description box below. So for the materials, you will need yarn. The yarn that I'm using is Winter King. It's a 4-ply acrylic yarn, and I used about 4 balls of this. Each ball is 150 yards, and I used about 4 balls, which is a total of about 600 yards. And then you also need a 4mm crochet hook, a darning needle, and a pair of scissors. Another thing that you'll need is a measuring tape. So let's get started. So to start our project, we are going to start off with a slip knot, and we're going to make a chain of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is going to be the thickness of our waistband from here to here. So after your 10 chains, you're going to go into the second chain from the hook and place a single crochet, and then single crochet into the next chain, and keep single crocheting into each and every chain until the end of the row. This is row 1 of the waistband. Alright, so you should end up with a total of 9 single crochets. Row 2, you're going to make a chain of 1 and turn your work, and then single crochet back loop only into each and every single crochet from the previous row. So single crochet back loop only. So working into the back loop only is going to create a ribbed effect for your waistband. And then another thing that you have to make sure you have is the same exact number of stitches for each and every row. So since I had a total of 9 single crochets for row 1, I should be having a total of 9 single crochets for row 2. We're going to repeat row 2 until our ribbing, waistband ribbing, is our waistline circumference without stretching. So the waistline circumference that I am considering for this design is 26 inches. So I'm going to keep repeating row 2 until I have a total of 26 inches for my ribbing without stretching. So we're going to keep growing like this, as you'll see in my next clip, until the ribbing is your waistline circumference without stretching. You just make a chain of 1 and turn your work, and single crochet back loop only in each and every stitch across. Make sure you have the same exact number of stitches for each and every row. Alright, so I ended up doing a total of 110 rows for the ribbing of the waistline, and that gave me my waistline circumference without stretching, as you can see here. The waistline circumference that I am considering is 26 inches, and it can even go beyond this when stretched, but consider this measurement without stretching, so that it can comfortably fit around your hips when wearing the skirt. So I have a total of 110 rows, and this is what my ribbing looks like. You're going to fold it over, and you're going to stitch the 2 ends of the ribbing together. So you're going to make a chain of 1, and then you're going to join the stitches together. So go into the back loop of this stitch and the stitch on the opposite side, and place a slip stitch just like that. Go into the next stitch and the next stitch on this side, and slip stitch. So continue to do this all the way across in order to form a round. Alright, so we are joining the very last stitch together with the stitch on the opposite side, and this is what the joining is going to look like. You can see it's very neat, and make sure your waistband is not twisted. So at this point, if I take a measurement across, I should be having half of my waistline circumference. As you can see here, we have 13 inches. So this can stretch even further than that because we considered the measurements without stretching. And this is going to be the wrong side of our work, the side where the slip stitch is worked, or the right side, because this is neat enough to also be on the right side of your work. So for me, I'm going to just twist my work so that I turn it onto this side, because I want to consider this side as the right side of my work. And now we're going to clean up the edging of our waistband. You're going to make a chain of 1, and as we work, we are going to weave in this tail so that it disappears. So you're going to go into each and every row with 1 single crochet. Just clean up the edges, placing 1 single crochet in each and every row. So since I had a total of 110 rows for my waistband, I expect to have a total of 110 stitches for my very first round. Just go into each and every row with 1 single crochet. All right, so we've made it all the way around the base of the waistband, and I'm placing my very last single crochets into the last rows of the waistband. So for me, I have a total of 110 single crochets, and you should make sure that you have an even number of stitches for this round. When you make it all the way around, you're going to place a slip stitch into the very first single crochet of the round. This is what you should have. We shall come back to clean up the top edge of the skirt later on. So we are now going to work downwards to create the length of the skirt. Now this is round 2. You're going to make a chain of 1 and turn your work so that you're working in the opposite direction of the previous round. So chain 1, turn your work, single crochet into the first stitch, and then double crochet into the next, single crochet into the next, and double crochet into the next. You're going to repeat that all the way around, alternating between single crochet and double crochet all the way around. So the texture hasn't yet started forming, but as we keep building, we shall start seeing the texture. So keep alternating between single and double crochet until the end of the round, and I'll show you how to wind up. Alright, so we've made it all the way around, and I have only 1 stitch left, and that stitch should get a double crochet. Your very final stitch should be a double crochet. and then you're going to slip stitch into the very first single crochet of the round. Insert your hook and pull through all. That marks the end of round 2. Now we are going to place our work like this so that the seam line is in the middle of our piece, and we are going to get our 2 stitch markers. These 2 stitch markers are going to mark the side stitches of the skirt, the side stitches of our piece. So you should make sure that you mark a double crochet stitch on this side, and then a double crochet stitch on this side as well. So I'll mark this one. I'm just eyeballing, but if you want to be accurate, make sure you count the number of stitches. Now these 2 stitch markers are going to get increases in order to accommodate the hip circumference of our skirt. So we're going on to round 3, and for round 3 we're going to start creating our increases at those points that we've just marked. So round 3, you're going to make a chain of 1 and then single crochet in the very first double crochet of the round. After your chain of 1, you're going to turn your work so that you're working in the opposite direction of the previous round. So single crochet into the first double crochet of the round, double crochet into the single crochet. So we're just alternating. Where you have a double crochet, you place a single crochet, and then where you have a single crochet, you place a double crochet. You're going to do that until the stitch before the one with the stitch marker. So this is the lemon peel stitch, and you'll see the texture later on as the piece keeps building. Alright, so keep alternating between double and single crochet. Until you place a double crochet into the single crochet before the stitch with the stitch marker. And now you're going to remove your stitch marker, and into that stitch that had the stitch marker, you're going to place 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet into the same stitch, and 1 single crochet into the same stitch. And then you're going to mark the double crochet, the middle double crochet of the 3 stitches. And then from here, you're going to make a double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next single crochet, single crochet into the next double crochet. And you're going to repeat that until you get to your next stitch marker. Alright, so we've made it all the way to our next stitch marker, which is this one. So we place a double crochet in the stitch before the one with the stitch marker. Remove your stitch marker, and into that stitch that had the stitch marker, you're going to place a single crochet, a double crochet into the same stitch, and a single crochet into the same stitch. And then replace the stitch marker into the middle double crochet of the 3 stitches, and then 1 double crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet into the next stitch. So we keep alternating between double and single until the end of the round, and I'll show you how to wind up your round 3 or your increase round. Alright, so we are coming to the end of the round, and I'm placing a single crochet into the second last stitch, and you should end your round with a double crochet into the very final stitch of the round. So after your last double crochet, you're going to locate the single crochet at the beginning of the round, and you're going to place a slip stitch. So that marks the end of round 3, which was supposed to be our increase round. So another thing that I want to point out is, if you can't figure out your very first stitch, make use of the stitch marker at the beginning of the round, but make sure you don't confuse it with these stitch markers that have the increase points. So since I can eyeball mine, I'm not going to place a stitch marker at the beginning of the round. So round 4, you're going to make a chain of 1, and this is going to be a non-increase round. So make a chain of 1 and turn your work, single crochet into the first double crochet, and if you're to use a stitch marker, this is the point where you're going to mark the very first stitch, just like that. But just to be on a safe side, I think you just have to use 2 stitch markers, so that you know the point that has 2 stitch markers is just the beginning of the round, and we are not going to place increases at that point. So that's how I'm going to locate this spot here that doesn't have to get increases. So I'll just put a stitch marker here and here, so that I know when it comes to this part, when I'm working my increase rounds, I don't place an increase here, because the increases are on the sides of the skirt, and those are the ones that create the hip accommodation. So after your single crochet, you're going to place a double crochet into the next single crochet, single crochet into the next double crochet, and repeat that all the way around. I'll show you what to do when it comes to the stitch with a stitch marker along the line of increase. So this is round 4, and we are approaching our stitch marker where we placed an increase for the previous round, and you are going to place a double crochet into the single crochet before the stitch marker. Remove your stitch marker, and then place a single crochet into that double crochet, replace the stitch marker into the single crochet, just like that, and then you're going to place a double crochet into the next single crochet, and then single crochet into the next double crochet. And as you can see, for this round we haven't created any increase at this point. We've just worked across, creating 1 stitch into each stitch from the previous round. So you're going to keep alternating between double crochet and single crochet all the way around until you get to your next stitch marker, where you'll do the same exact thing that we've done here, since it's a non-increase round. So when you get to this point, we're going to do the same exact thing that we've done here. All right, so we've reached our next stitch marker, and I'm placing a double crochet right before the stitch marker. You're going to remove the stitch marker, and into that double crochet you're going to place a single crochet and mark that stitch with the stitch marker, and then double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next. So for this round we were basically alternating between single and double crochet all the way around without creating any increases. This is round 4. All right, so Once you get to this part that has 2 stitch markers, remember you're coming to the end of the round, and you should always make sure you end your round with a double crochet into the very last stitch. This is my last stitch and it will get a double crochet, and then remove your stitch marker and slip stitch into the very first single crochet of the round. So that marks the end of round 4, and as you can see, your work has started increasing towards the side. Round 5 is still a non-increase round, so basically we are going to make a chain of 1 and turn our work so that we are working in the opposite direction of the previous round, and then you're going to place a single crochet into the very first double crochet and then double crochet into the next stitch. So mark the very first stitch if you feel like you need to use the stitch markers, and then single crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and single crochet into the next. So do that until you get to your next stitch marker along the line of increase. And since I have said that this round 5 is a non-increase round, that means we are still not going to increase anything. We're just going to go past the stitch markers, alternating between single crochet and double crochet. So we've reached the stitch before the stitch marker and it's a double crochet this time. We are going to place a single crochet, remove your stitch marker, and in the stitch that had the stitch marker, it was a single crochet, so you're going to just place a double crochet there and then replace your stitch marker into that double crochet, and then single crochet into the next stitch and double crochet into the next. Keep alternating between the 2 stitches until you get to your next stitch marker. So make sure wherever you place a double crochet, that should be a single crochet from the previous round. So you can see this is a long stitch, which is a double crochet. It should get a single crochet. So we've reached our next stitch marker and you're placing a single crochet into the stitch before the stitch marker. Remove your stitch marker and place a double crochet into that stitch that had the stitch marker. Replace your stitch marker into that double crochet that you just placed, and then single crochet into the next stitch and double crochet into the next, and keep alternating between the 2 stitches until the end of the round. All right, so we're ending our row with a double crochet into the very final stitch, and you're going to remove our stitch marker from the first single crochet of the round and place a slip stitch into that single crochet. So that marks the end of round 5. So we are basically going to work rounds 3 to 5 until the base of our piece measures half of our hip circumference when slightly stretched. So as you can see here, we are at 17 inches and I'm aiming for 20 inches. So if you want your skirt tightly fitted, then you're going to consider this measurement when fully stretched. So you can see we are at about 18.5 to 19 inches. So we're going to create another increase at round 6, and then 2 rows of no increases, and then another increase round, and then 2 rounds of no increase, until the base of your skirt measures half of your hip circumference when stretched. So make use of the timestamps so that you can see exactly what to do at the different points. So for me, this is round 6. You make a chain of 1, turn your work, make sure your ori is working in the opposite direction of the previous round, and then single crochet. Your round ori starts with a single crochet, and if you wish, you place a stitch marker at this point, and then double crochet into the next, and keep alternating between single and double crochet until you get to your increase point, where you will do the same exact instructions that I explained for round 3. So this round should resemble round 3. The next one should resemble round 4, and then the next round should resemble round 5, because we are repeating rounds 3 to 5 until the base of our piece measures our hip circumference when stretched. So I'll do my rounds and get back when I have that measurement at the base of my piece. All right, so we have half of our hip circumference when stretched, and I ended up doing a total of 11 rows to get to that point. And then when you get to that point where this can stretch to half of your hip circumference, you're going to do away with the stitch markers on the sides. You can leave the stitch marker at the beginning of the round. I'll be placing that one, but the ones on the sides, I think their job is now done. Now you're going to start working plain rounds just to lengthen your piece. Make a chain of 1, turn your work, and now we are no longer worried about what point to increase. So you just make a chain of 1, turn your work, 1 single crochet into the first double crochet, and then double crochet into the next single crochet, and you're going to just keep alternating between the 2 stitches all the way around until you come back to the beginning of the round. So always mark the very first stitch so that you don't lose track of where the round starts or ends. So this is just going to be a plain round. So all you have to know is each round starts with a single crochet and ends with a double crochet. That's it. And always remember to turn your work at the beginning of each round so that you're always working in the opposite direction of the previous round. That's all that you have to note for these remaining rounds, and I'm going to just keep working until I have my desired length for my skirt. Alright guys, as you keep working from now on, now that we are not creating increases, you can see the direction of the piece is starting to go straight down. as opposed to spreading outwards to create a corner on this side. So now we're just going downwards because we are no longer increasing, and you can see that on this side as well. So keep working your rounds. All right guys, I continued working my pattern until my piece measured 10 inches all the way from the top, including the waistband, to the bottom. So this is for a medium size, but for all the other sizes, just check on the screen and follow the instructions. So at this point, you're going to go ahead and count the number of stitches that you have for your very final row. For me, I did a total of 25 rows after the waistband in order to get this length of the 10 inches right from the beginning all the way down to the crotch. Or you can try on your shorts so that you can see whether this can hit that spot where your legs split. So we are going to do an extension. So you're going to count the number of stitches that you have all the way around. For me, that is a total of 122 stitches all the way around. So we are going to make a chain to split the legs, and that chain should be an even number. For me, I'm going to go ahead and make a total of 20 chains. After your slip stitch, you're going to just make a total of 20 chains, or just check on the screen for the different sizes. And then you're going to, since I have a total of 122, I marked the exact middle stitch, which is this one here. It's a double crochet, which is the 61st stitch, and then I am going to slip stitch into the stitch right after it, just like that. So this is the exact middle of my shorts. Make sure you split the stitches into half. And then at this point, you're going to remove your stitch marker. And you're going to make a chain of 1. And you're going to work in the direction whereby you're working in the opposite direction of the previous round. So for me, I'm going to first take this direction. As you can see, the braid is on this side. So I'm going to make a chain of 1 and single crochet into the double crochet into the single crochet. So keep alternating between the 2 stitches until you come back to the chain. So we're going to first work one side of the shorts, and then we shall come back and work on the second side of the shorts. For now, we're going to first work this side. All right, so we're almost coming to the chain, and I am placing a single crochet into the last double crochet right before the chain. And then you're going to go ahead and double crochet into that stitch that's attached to the chain. And then we're going to start working along the chain. So single crochet in the very first chain, and then double crochet into the next, single crochet into the next, and double crochet into the next. You're going to keep alternating all the way across. All right, so we're coming to the end, and you should end with a double crochet into the very last chain, just like that. And now from here, you're going to slip stitch into the very first single crochet of the round, and that marks the end of round 1 on one side of the shorts. And then we're going to go back to our plain rounds. You make a chain of 1, and then turn your work, single crochet into the first, double crochet into the next single crochet. You can go ahead and make use of your stitch markers so that you don't forget where the very first stitch of the round is. So we are back to the non-increase rounds, just plain rounds. You're just going to go back and forth until you have the length of the shorts that you desire. So let me just go ahead and keep working my rounds, and I'll be back to show you how many rounds that I went for my very first side, and then I'll show you what to do for the second side. All right, so we ended up doing a total of 10 rounds after the splitting of the legs, and the length that I have after splitting the legs is about 4 inches total, and this is what my short looks like at the moment. This length is just enough for me, but you can go even longer if you wish, or even shorter. So after this, you're going to make a chain of 1 and cut your yarn, pull through. That marks the end of the very first leg extension, and this is what we have. And now we're going to attach our yarn to start working on the second leg extension. So to do that, actually this seam line has appeared at the front of my shirts, but it dissolves in so well that you can't even know that it's a seam line, unless if you're very, very attentive. But you can attach your yarn anywhere. So I'm going to attach my yarn for my second leg hole and make sure I'm working in the opposite direction of the previous round. So the braid of the previous round is like this. So that means I'm going to work in the opposite direction of the previous round. So to do that, I'm going to attach my yarn in any stitch. Actually, I can even start from the extension chain here. Go into the chain. This may be a little bit hard, but make sure you get the very first chain of the middle chain. And then single crochet into the very first chain. And then double crochet into the next chain. Make sure you don't skip any chain. Single crochet into the next and double crochet into the next. And keep working that all the way across the middle chain. All right, so I'm placing my last double crochet into the last chain of the middle chain here, and then I'll place a single crochet into the very first double crochet on the body of the shirt, as you can see here. So after that, double crochet into the next single crochet and single crochet into the next double crochet, and keep alternating between the 2 stitches until you come back to the middle chain where you started your round. This is round 1 of the second leg extension. So I'm going to keep on alternating between double and single crochet all the way back to the beginning of the round, and I'll show you how to wind up. All right, so we've come to the end of round 1 of the second leg extension, and you should end your round with a double crochet into the very last stitch. Just like that, and then you're going to slip stitch into the very first single crochet of the round. And now that we've laid a foundation for the very first round, we're just going to go back to repeating the same exact round that we repeated on this side, the first leg extension. So you just make a chain of 1 and turn your work so that you're working in the opposite direction of the previous round, and then single crochet in the very first double crochet of the round, and then double crochet into the next single crochet of the round, and keep alternating between single and double crochet all the way around until you come to the end of the round, where you end your round with a double crochet. You always end your round with a double crochet and then slip stitch into the very first single crochet of the round. So if you prefer to use a stitch marker, please go ahead and use that for the very first stitch so that you keep track of your very first stitch of the round. So keep working until you have the same exact number of rounds as you have for your first leg extension. For example, I have a total of 10 rounds for my first leg extension. So that means I'm going to do a total of 10 rounds on this side, and this is just round 2. So that means after this round, I'll have a total of 8 more rounds in order to balance the 2 legs so that we can make a balanced pair of shirts. So let me just go ahead and do that, and I'll be back to show you what everything looks like. Alright guys, we are done balancing both legs, and we did our 10 rounds on this side as well. As you can see, now this is what our shorts look like. And after your very last stitch, you're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet of the round and make a chain of 1 and cut your yarn. Pull through. And at this point, we are done with the basic structure of the shorts. And if you feel like this is still a little bit big for your waistline and you need to do a little bit of shaping so that this is gathered around the waistline, I'm going to introduce my elastic strand. So this elastic strand should be approximately about 6 inches less than your waistline circumference. So as you can see here, I have a total of about 20 inches of the elastic strand, and I'm going to just make a knot, just join it in the round. If you need to sew it together, please go ahead and do that. And then you're going to cut off the excess, but don't cut very close to the knot. So you can see this elastic strand, the circumference of the strand is much smaller than the actual waistband. So from here, we're going to go ahead and we crochet around the top of the shorts while weaving in the elastic strand. So I'm going to do that from the back of the shorts. Attach your yarn and then start single crocheting into each and every row all the way around. Go into each and every row with a single crochet while crocheting around the elastic strand. So as you crochet around, keep pulling on the elastic strand so that it creates some sort of gather on top of the shorts. All right, so we've come to the end of the round, and you can see how perfectly the elastic strand has fitted into the waistline circumference. After your last single crochet, you're going to go on top of the first single crochet of the round and place a slip stitch. Now you're going to make a chain of 1 and cut your yarn and then pull through. Now you're going to get a darning needle and weave in all your tails. We have tails here, and you should notice a hole at this point. You may be having that hole there, so you're going to thread your darning needle like this and then push your yarn to the back and try to close it up. Try to sew the stitches around that hole together so that we don't get that separation between the stitches on the right side of the work. So just try to go in and out of different stitches and then cut your yarn. Then when you come to the right side, you can see how the hole has been closed up. Now you're going to go ahead and just weave in all your tails, and that's basically it. Your pair of shorts is done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me just go ahead and weave in my tails and I'll be able to show you the final look of the shorts. Alright guys, after weaving in all your ends, this is what your shorts should look like. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you did, and I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to check out the written pattern on all my online shops. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.